Hi, and welcome to an extra super duper edition of That's Crap Detection. I'm your host, Dean Venderman. I'm super excited today to be with my colleague and fellow teacher, Amanda Jacek-Flaman. Madame Jacek-Flaman, our French Immersion teacher here, one of the many awesome French Immersion teachers here at Archbishop M.C. O'Neill Catholic High School. And right now, Amanda is teaching Catholic Studies en français, and she gets to teach a little bit of digital citizenship. So that's what I'm looking forward to talking to her today about. So, Amanda, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Great, thank you. My voice again a little bit better. I don't know if you've been hearing a joke I've been saying a little bit. My voice is kind of like a pony. It's a little hoarse, and I know
I've heard you mention that once or twice.
kind of beating that one like a dead horse. So maybe I better not use that joke anymore. Think of something a little bit better. But so tell me a little bit, if you don't mind, about your Catholic Studies class en français and what you're currently teaching in it.
Yeah, so this is my first time through teaching Catholic Studies. It's a new-ish curriculum. I'm not sure in English. It's been around for a few years. This is the second year it's being offered in French Immersion, and my first time doing it. I'm lucky enough to have a phenomenal colleague who's helped me out. She's taught it before and she's passed me on a lot of things. I'm just coming to the end of my first unit, which I've really enjoyed. It's all about digital citizenship. So yeah, so many different applications and so many directions that you can take that in with teenagers these days. So been good so far.
Perfect. No, that's exactly what I was happy that you agreed to be on the big show here, because I know you've had some expertise and you're right in the front lines with it. You know, a lot of times in our class, we talk about how we're going to do this with students, but you've actually been doing it. So I'm really excited about your response to some of these questions today. So my first question is there a time that I've run into fake news as an educator, maybe in your class or even individually, like in your personal life, and how did you go about learning from that or using it as a teachable moment?
So I consider myself to be really lucky. I cannot think of any times when I've run into fake news or false sources or whatever for students doing work basing their information off of anything fake. In my personal life, though, all the time, I probably at least a couple times a week I see something on Twitter, whether it's an article or lately I'm seeing a lot of political memes about something that a politician has supposedly said or a bill that they're trying to pass where it's going to, give immigrants millions of dollars while, Canadians get nothing. And I'm seeing a lot of that stuff. So generally what I do is, some of them are just really obviously fake and I don't even need to look up whether it's true or not. But I will still Google it and I'll try and find a source and then I'll send that to whoever shared it with me and I'll say like, okay, no, this is what the quote really was, or, in some cases, the person who you attributed this to literally isn't even, a person that exists, or it's not a member of parliament or whatever. So, so I try and find something that will show them like, no, this is what you posted is incorrect, and hopefully that gets them to stop spreading misinformation. Some people I know take it to heart. Some people, especially ones that are politically motivated, are just so insistent on finding anything that will make a certain party look bad that they're not overly concerned about whether it's accurate or not,
Yeah.
fortunately.
No, it sounds like you have a pretty good built-in crap detector, and you have some good critical thinking skills. So, what are some of the things that you'll take into the classroom, or what are some of the things that you talk, whether it's a fact-checking tool or a strategy? You kind of mentioned a little bit in your answer, but how do you get the kids to think about it?
So we've been talking a little bit about critical thinking. Actually, just in class an hour ago, we watched the video about, I don't know if you or how many of your watchers remember the House Hippos commercials
Yeah, we've been talking about that in class. It's a good call, yeah.
Yeah, when I was a kid. And I mean, that pertains to don't believe everything you see on TV, but it's exactly the same thing. If something is well produced, it's pretty easy to get people to believe it, no matter how unbelievable a concept it is. So some of the strategies are calling on what you already know. Like if you get to grade 9 and you've only ever heard about giant hippos that, live on other continents, all of a sudden, something called a North American house hippo. No, you probably would have heard of it before. So things like that. So just thinking about what you already know, and does this line up? Does this align with my, I don't know how you say it in English, connaissance antérieure. It's like
Nice. I like the French. That's good.
what you already know. I'm
Yeah.
sure that there's a better sounding way to say it in English,
Oh,
but
no, that
it's
makes sense.
your prior knowledge, I guess, is maybe the term. And if you're not able to definitively determine from that, then start looking it up. Anything that's gone viral, Snopes is always my go-to, because I find that they're really on top of things that they'll have. Occasionally you look something up and it turns out it is true. A lot of the time, though, it's either totally false or it started out as true, but somehow it deviated from the real story partway through, and it's kind of a mix of fact and fiction. So anything that's gone viral, I find Snopes is really helpful. They break it down. They always cite their sources. So, I mean, if you still have your doubts, then you look up, Kate, where did they get the information that this, didn't happen or whatever. So that's a good one. Just doing other Googling, seeing if you can find other sources that say the same thing. I had one student, though, who made a great point that, that helps, but that's still not a guarantee, because I can make a website that says whatever I want it to say, and then I can go make 2 different websites, or I can ask my friends to all make a website. So,
Right.
I mean, honestly, your brain and critical thinking that's the most important tool is, does it seem real? Does it seem plausible?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, because like we've talked a lot too in class and stuff about lateral reading, about looking at different sites. So it's interesting to say that you could maybe make sites to back up your other site, but even if you did a fact check on the author and stuff, it'd be maybe not as easy to make something about an author, like to track down somebody's name and that type of thing. But yeah, it's a good point that you make. Things can get pretty elaborate, and if somebody really wants to get it stuck in their lie of webs,
Mhm.
so to speak, there are some sophisticated ways to do it. But yeah, I like the way you said it. If you keep it simple and use your internal critical thinking, that's one of the best tools you can use. So that kind of brings me to one of my last questions here, and that's, how do you get that balance between being a critical thinker but also not being too cynical? Because the internet is a great tool. There's lots of really good information out there too, and sometimes the truth is out there. So
Yeah.
how do you get that balance, or how do you promote that to the students?
Well, yeah, and that's really interesting, the idea of balance, because yeah, it's important to know what you're, reposting, republishing, using in your, in an assignment or whatever. It's important to know that that's true. That being said, I can't imagine the amount of time it would take if I Googled every meme or every article. Like I mean, you got to draw the line somewhere. So the first is, kind of, does it pass the smell test? Is it reasonable? And the more experience you have, the more that you'll get used to, things like checking what is the source. Okay, well, if it's, coming from a university website, first of all, is it a university that I've heard of? If it's a, big enough university, it's probably something I can count on. If it's coming from a government website, there are some countries where that may be questionable,
Yeah,
but most of the government websites that I would probably stumble upon would be Canadian, American, or, maybe England or France. And I think that those are all pretty safe bet that they're just looking at what your source is.
yeah.
I think is kind of a great starting point.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So, another question, just with talking, how are your students responding in your Catholic Studies class about doing digital citizenship? And it's kind of unique to us in Catholic Studies. What's kind of the tie-in there for maybe some of the people that don't know what Catholic Studies is about?
So Catholic Studies is, I mean, the name kind of implies, it's learning about Catholicism, and different grade levels. You hit different facets. I mean, part of being a digital citizenship is just being a good citizen, of course, but as that relates to technology. Well, being a good world citizen, being a good person, of course, that ties in perfectly with any religious-based or moral-based class. So, I mean, we've even taken Bible verses and tied them to different, I gave the students 9 different verses, and I said, Kate, tie each one to one of Ribble's 9 elements. And of course, I mean, Snapchat didn't exist when they wrote the Bible, but you find things about being kind to others, or helping other people get access to what they need. The connections are there, and it can be really interesting.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I'm glad you mentioned Ripple too. That's something, somebody's work that we, really concentrate in class too and talked about. So it's nice to see that connection too. So, because I don't think a lot of students in other classes actually concentrate sometime on digital citizenship, and it's kind of to the comfort level, I guess, of the teacher to introduce that. So it's nice to know that it's being talked about and discussed about it. And what are the kids like already savvy, or do you find out that they really are learning a lot, and a lot of things that you're talking about are surprising them?
Um, I got them to evaluate themselves, not themselves personally, but I said, like, if you kind of think about all the students at our school, on a scale of 1 to 5, how, and we didn't do digital citizenship, but I said digitally literate. How would you rate your skills? And most people gave kind of a group score of 4 out of 5. So they consider themselves to be pretty digitally literate, because everything that they want to do, they already know how to do. They can upload photos, they can apply filters, they can find music, they can find games. And so to them, that is their definition of being digitally literate. They can, they can do all those things. Literally within 5 minutes of that, I had a student who said, I don't know what these keys do on the keyboard. And I said, which keys? And he said, well, I don't know what they're called. Can I show you? And he came up and he stood right in front of my computer and he pointed at Tab, Shift, Control, and Alt. He doesn't know what those keys do. He doesn't know what the Shift key is on there for. So I asked the students, I said, how many of you guys use the Shift key to get a capital? And it was maybe 2/3 of them. And I said, the rest of you guys, are you using caps lock? Yeah. A whole group of students, when they need to press a cap, they'll hit caps lock, a D, caps lock again to turn it off and continue on with their word. When I was a student, and I'm dating myself a bit here, but I'm not as old as some people in this conversation. When I was in school, we had computer class where we took Mavis Beacon typing, and we learned, office programs and stuff like that. And at some point they did away with that because it wasn't necessary to teach kids, because they've grown up with it. They know all this stuff automatically. We don't need to have a class. They're already doing it in their English and their science and their social and whatever else. That's not necessarily the case. Yes, kids are online all the time. Does that mean they know how to effectively create a PowerPoint? Not necessarily.
Right.
So I think that that's something that would be great. That's one thing I'm really excited that digital citizenship has a specific place in the curriculum, because yes, you can integrate things in all of your other subjects, but our curriculums are pretty jam-packed for the most part, so it can be kind of difficult sometimes to carve out an extra time to talk about your critically vetting your sources and stuff like that. It's phenomenal that in this new curriculum they've taken a time where we can sit down and we can talk about doing some of these things.
Cool. Is social media part of that too, and how to be a good digital citizenship, or digital citizen, I should say, on using social media, or is that something that's still kind of left to chance?
So that's something that we discuss, but for that, the students already know all the right answers. They know about, bullying and whatever else, and responsible and having your settings or whatever. They know all the right answers. That being said, it's impossible for me to know how much of that they're actually putting in practice. They know that, bullying is hurtful and whatever, but are some of them, going to straight out of my classroom and sending a horrible message to somebody via Snapchat? I have no way of policing that. I know they know better, but sometimes teenagers know better and still do things. So
Yeah. Well, on the flip side of that too, are we also showing or providing opportunities for them to be leaders using social media, whether they're starting a campaign or whether they're being kind online and starting like saying one good thing about a person a day or whatever, because that could be just as powerful as the negative, even more powerful if we have more positivity on there. Do you think kids think about that a little bit as well?
I don't know that that's something that that kind of occurs to them naturally. That could be an interesting class project that I might look into for a future year. One disadvantage of that is, I mean, although technology is pretty rampant, not everybody has social media. Some they choose not to. More often, it's these kids are still in grade 9. Sometimes their parents are not yet comfortable with them having online profiles and an
Right,
online presence. So you have to be careful to not start a project that's going to a curricular project at least that's going to exclude kids. That being
right,
said, could the SRC or the chaplain, or could somebody start something that's we want to do this, hashtag O'Neill kindness or whatever.
right.
That could be really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, we've done it in the past a little bit, but I still think, yeah, it's interesting. But I really just, and thank you it's great to have a teacher's perspective and somebody's right on the front lines, seeing it every day and working with students and that. So, Amanda, thank you so much for being part of today's show. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's about it for today.
All right. Well, thanks a lot again. And that's been another edition of That's Crap Detection, the show. I'm Dean Venderman. Until next time, know your crap detection.